Let's understand in the easiest possible way how the tariffs could impact you, your business, and the opportunity to make money or not. And the second, the numbers. Because when my grandmother, Cecilia, asked me things, I wanted to explain things in the easy possible way. And I want to start with the real numbers so you're not confounded about what is really happening with the trade war. And now we're finally in the Trump's tariff war. And we will see the elements. And I'm going to put data from the OEC, which is a very interesting project from the MIT. And what I like about this project is that it shows the data in a very graphical way. So, starting with this, where does the US export? This is very important. 15.8% is to Canada. Okay? 15.1 is to Mexico. These are exports. Okay? Remember that. This is exports, like selling to. And then China, 7.71%. So right now, Trump is declaring a trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China. His largest partners, largest places that they do exports. Okay. So this is very interesting because it's like, okay, so what is the goal? The goal, as always, that they say, if we put these taxes on foreign countries, therefore we can build the things ourselves and allow these countries and companies to stop selling these products in the US. Therefore, the US could produce them. Okay. And now, US has put the tariffs, so Canada has answered. Okay. And let's go to Canada and I will go back to the US. What is the impact? Well, for Canada is more terrible because 74.5% of the exports from Canada are to the US. So really, that's a pretty bad deal for Canada. It's like, dude, it's like, wow, I'm going to show you. Just check these numbers. It's incredible. So those tariffs of 25% really affect Canadian economy. Then other trade partners of Canada are China and Japan. But yes, Poilievre, who is going to become the new prime minister of Canada, he said that they had made a mistake of just relying in one country. And now we can see it. So what are the exports from Canada to the US and how this could be affected? So both can analyze the data. This is almost $500 billion per year. So that's like the fortune of Elon Musk. Now, 26% is crude oil. And that's the reason Trump has said, well, we can replace that because drill, baby, drill. Therefore, saying, okay, we can have our own oil if we discover more oil. Okay, next one is petroleum gas. As well, the US is one of the largest gas producers in the world, and that's the reason they were so happy when the largest gas pipeline in the world was blew up mysteriously by a country. Yes, and I'm talking the Nord Stream. So that one that connected Russia with Germany in the gas pipeline, well, that was blew up, and that's the reason that the US has been exporting more. That's the famous Nord Stream. So right now in these two elements, well, the US could start replacing if they increase the production. Therefore, the strategy from the US to impose tariffs on Canada on oil, it's good. Then you have refined petroleum and then electricity. But what is the problem, my friends? That sounds good, correct? It sounds amazing. Well, the key issue is what was going to happen with the price of the barrel of oil. Why? Well, I'm going to just show you some numbers so we can analyze the market together. Now, the oil Brent $76.77. Let's see the last 5 years what has happened. Well, it reached an all-time high here, almost $122. And right now, in the past years, it has been over $70. What is the problem? That just changing, like let's say that big percentage that I was showing you from crude petroleum being imported from Canada, well, what is the issue? Is that the prices, gas prices in the US will be affected. Okay? Why? Let's check the data. They import, their exports, they also export petroleum. Okay? And we'll check later what is going on with that. So, the key issues. So, what needs to happen in order for Trump to really achieve his goals? To lower the price of the barrel. And that's the reason in the other side he has said to the king of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, well, that he should control the prices so he can lower the price. Correct, because if he's getting into a trade war with countries that he import oil, he needs the oil prices to go down so he can offset that. So think about this. If the oil prices don't go below $60, the play for Donald Trump is pretty bad for Americans. Because remember that crude oil is not only used for gas, it's used for manufacturing as well. So you're talking about bring manufacturing back to the US. Okay, but you know that you need oil to do that, correct? So those are the key things. If the oil price increases, it's a pretty bad deal from the US. So take that number one into consideration when you're analyzing Canada. Let's see other ones. Cars. Well, Canada exports almost $27 billion in cars. And motor vehicle parts and accessory, other 11 billion. That's like a lot. But check this. So now you're saying, okay, now is the US is gonna start to produce more cars? Well, the problem is that around the world, the US has not performing so well in the past years. Why? Because it has not invested what it should have been invested. I'm going to show you another graph about that. So unless they transform that, this is going to be a big problem. What you can see here is a graph called global production. List of countries by motor vehicle production. Check. In the 1950s, after the Second World War, the US represented 70%. Imagine, that was the peak moment. Of course, Europe was destroyed. The rest of the world was just healing. And the US was the leader. But since there, it's just going down. Why? Well, other countries start to ramp up, such as Japan. After they were bombed by the US with the nuclear bombs, they had like almost nothing. That's when now Japan, the peak was in the 80s, as you can see here. Okay. And then you can see other countries entering. But in the 2000, that's when the yellow one that you can see at the top enters the game, and is China. And now China produces more cars than the US. So, yes, wants to produce more cars, which is good. Well, it needs to completely change their strategies. If not, it's going to be highly affected. And I'm just showing you the exports from Canada. Now I'm going to show you the exports. Okay. Mexico also has the same problem. For $549 billion, but depending almost entirely in the US, which is a mistake. Now we know that when you depend on one country is a big mistake. Now let's see what are the exports from Mexico to the US. Oh, cars, $34 billion. And motor vehicle parts, $31 billion. So I just have one question for you, my dear friends. Do you think the US will be able to revamp the car manufacturing power in the next 4 years? Because if they don't, what is gonna simple happen is that the price for cars and car parts are gonna be increased. And actually, in the first years of tariff wars, everyone that is buying a new car or a vehicle part is gonna be increased. That's it. It's simple. It's like that's that's the reason I call this video teaching to my grandma, because it's logical, correct? It should come from somewhere. When you're talking about bring back the jobs, which I agree, like the logic is very interesting, but you should have a plan. It's not like you can just say, I'm gonna bring the job back, but what is happening? Check manufacturing, check production. Like, just ask this question to Tesla. Even though with all the money, with all access, have they been able to achieve their deliveries? No. Why? Because setting car manufacturing, it's complicated. It costs money and it takes time. So, of course, you have to do two things simultaneously. Number one, immediately people will see effect on the prices of gas and products that are derivatives from oil, on petroleum. Okay? And check this. Mexico exports $25 billion in delivery trucks. So now think about the companies in the US that needs to buy new delivery trucks and parts for those delivery trucks. The price are gonna be increased, because then you say, no, we can do it locally. Yes, but then how is your manufacturing? It's not going so well. That's the problem. It's like when you're talking about doing things is nice, but when you're talking about really setting up manufacturing, it's challenging. Look, the blue one. In 1995, China was no one in automobile production, like no one. And now it's the biggest in the world. But check the blue one. Why? Because China has been with a plan, long-term plan of becoming the manufacturing superpower of the world. But it's taking time, okay? So when Trump is saying, let's bring back manufacturing, you cannot just simply from one day to another, because you have not set up anything. So he needs to start investing money. So what is going to happen? Prices are going to increase. Cars, trucks, parts of vehicles, derivatives of petroleum, and gas. Those are the things that are going to be simple, no? No, that's the reality when you check all these elements. Okay. Wood. Okay, in the US they can say, we need some wood. Well, you have to start doing things. If not, dude, it's not easy. It's not easy. You can do it. Now, the interesting thing of what I've seen, for example, Mexico exports computers, $36 billion in computers. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, my dear friends. And now, that are the prices that are going to be affected locally in the US. All those things that I'm showing you right now are going to get affected. That's the reality. Okay. Now, you from the US, okay, how much do they export? To Canada, almost 300 billion, and to Mexico, 294 billion. Okay. So in Canada, in both cases, they have an economic surplus, meaning that they export more to Canada, but of course they import more to Mexico. So let's check what American products are gonna be affected. This is very interesting. So I click here on Canada. Okay. And look, something very interesting. These are the American products that are going to be affected by this trade war. Oh, cars. So what is the problem here? In one side, Mexico has tariffs on the cars production, and in the other side, the US will face tariffs on the car production to Canada. Let's say how much money is 16 billion. Okay. Now, 14 billion of delivery trucks. And I'm comparing that. Mexico, they export 34 billion and delivery trucks 25 billion. Wow, wow. Also, they export to Canada refined petroleum, 15 billion. If you check what is Canada exporting to the US, they send the crude petroleum. They also export refined petroleum, 15 billion, but the US export crude petroleum and refined petroleum. It's very, very interesting. So that is going to be affected. Okay. Now, these are the major products to Canada. Okay. What about here? 3 billion in vaccines, medicaments, 3 billion, industrial fatty seed oils, and all of this. Okay, now let's see to Mexico. What is the US exporting to Mexico? Oh, refined petroleum. Okay, and now the Mexicans have said, of course, we need to retaliate as well. We cannot just allow the bully of Trump to see and said whatever he wants. Okay, so that could be affected. So maybe the solution that now people are thinking are, oh, Canada could be calling Mexico, and Mexico could be calling Canada and saying, hey, can we start increasing our cooperation? We're closer. We just have to go through the US to send things. Interesting, no? Now, to Mexico, integrated circuits, it's 10 billion. That's a big industry that is going to be. Office machine parts, 9 billion. These are US companies that are going to get affected directly because Mexico is going to react. That's it. Corn, guys, the corn producers, $4 billion. Also, motor vehicle parts, 16 billion. Okay, so these are the main industries, and I haven't not even analyzed China, guys, because China is going for another program. Thank you very much for following me. Have you subscribed to the channel? Write in the comments below what do you want me to explain later. But at the end, it's very simple. Tariffs will increase prices. People will pay more. Inflation will rise. And if the barrel of oil doesn't go below $60, the plan will just backfire to Trump. And if Trump doesn't start to invest billions of dollars in manufacturing, he will not be able to replace that. Therefore, the next president that will come, it could take back those tariffs. That's the reality. Thank you.